We are Rogue Media Sports.
Have you ever brought your magic to Walt Disney World like, hey, we came to play? Did you tip your tiara to a Creole princess or get goofy officially? When we come through, it's true magic, because we came to play at Walt Disney World Resort.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
It is the Doomsday Podcast, and in the aftermath of a Cowboys 40-3 beatdown of the Vikings, Ed Werder joining us. He's just left the, what do they call that, U.S. Bank? I mean,
U.S.
it looks
Bank
like
Stadium,
beautiful. Yeah. I mean, from the TV shots of that thing from up above, gorgeous. Ed, you're what are we talking about? Like 10 degrees, 5 degrees? What was it when you woke up this morning? You love to get an early start. I mean, you're almost up as early as I am. What did you?
The wind chill was about 6 below zero this morning, but coming back just now, it was in the 20s. So it's become much more mild than it was as the day progressed. But yeah, it was. It's a beautiful stadium, and it's a place that the Cowboys have now won 3 years in a row with 3 different quarterbacks. I thought it was interesting, going into the game that the Cowboys won here with Andy Dalton 2 years ago. They won here with Cooper Rush last year. And I thought that put a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott. He couldn't very easily justify losing in a stadium to an opponent that his backups in recent years had both defeated. That would have been hard for him to explain, but obviously that question did not come up after they won by 37 points today. And Mike McCarthy came out and was kind of lounging around for about 5 hours before the game, and I was over there doing TV, so I got a chance to talk to him again. And one of the things he told his team last night in their final team meeting was, hey, I've been in this division for 13 years. I've probably played games against the Vikings more than any other opponent I've had. And I can just tell you that with the noise in this place, it can be hard to manage. There's going to be momentum shifts, and you just can't panic when, something bad happens. He expected something bad would happen, and it never did. I mean, from the time Kirk Cousins went back on his first drop back on third down on the first series and got strip sacked by Micah Parsons, I don't think anything bad happened to the Cowboys the rest of the day after that.
No.
A lot of bad things happened to Kirk Cousins after that. He was sacked 7 times in the game. But McCarthy was worried about that. He felt like, I said to him, hey, how come everybody's talking about the Cowboys' run defense and how it ranks 29th in the NFL, and nobody's talking about the fact that Vikings' pass defense ranks 29th in the NFL? And he kind of laughed at that. But he said, hey, this is a game where, we're going to face a lot of zone coverage. Dak's got to be really good with his eyes in this game, and obviously he was. He didn't make any mistakes in the game, and they won by 37, the biggest road victory in the history of the franchise. So, as I said, they responded to historic failure in Green Bay a week later by having historic success in Minnesota.
Yeah, I would say, and I think McCarthy simply has started coming out before games, which is not really his MO. Just because he enjoys visiting with you. He came over to shake your hand before in his return to Green Bay. He was out early in Minneapolis. So, Ed, you've really kind of inspired Mike, I think. Ed, give me the, real quick, we're being taped right now for Facebook Live and some of our visual audience. Give me your that skull chant. Do you know how to do that? Can you kind of do that over your head? And did you see...
I saw J-Ron Kearse did it. J-Ron Kearse did it.
I know. He used to play there. I thought that was kind of funny. He mocked them with the skull chant. But, I do love a good pregame chant. It seems like those fans have a good time.
It's quite a theatrical pregame in Minnesota. They have snow machines, and so as part of what they do, given their heritage, they create snow and spray it pregame to make sure the cannons are working, which did not go well with my Navy suit. Looked like I had a bad case of dandruff on television this morning. And then they just count down the game, the pregame the whole way, and the big introductions. And it's quite a show until the game started, and then it wasn't really much of a show at all. The curtain closed quickly on the Vikings today.
All right, Ed, let me recommend Head and Shoulders, okay, for all of your dandruff issues.
New sponsor?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Miller Lite. You love those personal experiences, Ed, over the years, sipping Ed Miller Lite with your old buddy. Of course, he now has his own beer. But I guarantee you, at some point, you've had some beer with Troy Aikman. And he used to love that Miller Lite, but now he has his own beer called 8 or something like that.
Correct.
Which, tastes a little bit like Miller Lite, but I'm told. Okay, it is the Doomsday Podcast. Frito, please play the music. All right, and boy, speaking of sponsors, Ed, boy, shout out. I got to have dinner the other night, Ed, with the Marable family. Our presenting sponsors, of course, Blake Marable, Amy Marable, part of the Marable Empire, family-owned custom home builder building timeless classic homes in the Dallas area. A great team equipped to handle luxury residential new construction, passionate about what they do, and they strive to make it a great experience for their clients. And I'm telling you, they end up with these wonderful friendships long past the completion of the project. It is Marable Homes. You can find them at marablehomes.com, or you can Instagram, in case Twitter goes away, is at Marable Homes, and also Twitter, if Twitter stays with us for a little bit longer, at Marable Homes. It's MARABLEHOMES. And I just got to say, these houses are gorgeous, and they're starting to kind of people over in like Preston Hollow and Highland Park are like asking, wait, who's doing those homes? And you're starting to see other parts of Dallas with Marable Homes, and so we're excited to be associated with them. And Ed, I could see, and you're a guy that's kind of spread thin when it comes to all your homes. But
when I move to Highland Park,
yeah,
I'm gonna have them I'm gonna do a tear down, and I'm gonna have the Marable Homes build me a new place to reside for my retirement.
Oh, it's gonna be great. Ed, let's not talk about retirement. You know how ESPN.
Can I get a discount?
ESPN hears that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll volunteer to let you do that."
And they are talking about having layoffs again. So hey, here we go.
Oh, I got a story on that for you. Okay, it is the Doomsday Podcast, and Ed, this was you talked about the historical lows of forfeiting a fourth quarter lead to the tune of something they hadn't done. I mean, whatever. They had the 2-touchdown lead. It vanished, and they come back, interestingly, against one of Green Bay's biggest rivals, and the Cowboys did what they've done to the Vikings in recent years, go into their home, and that, Ed, the Cowboys travel well as far as their fans, but that's pretty, when you can take a team out by halftime, and I know other teams have kind of tried to fight back into games. Cowboys were down 20-3 or something like that against the Eagles and fought back in that game. This Vikings team had no fight left in it, even by halftime. And I just thought, Ed, it really spoke highly of the Cowboys' performance today, that even with 30 seconds left and a long way to go, they didn't just go, hey, this is a nice lead. They pressed on the gas and were able to score, and I think that kind of typified this performance.
Yeah, well, I thought the thing that impressed me the most is, Mike McCarthy, talks about playing complementary football. That's the point he emphasizes all the time. And he wants to do that with, the running game and a certain percentage of passes, but not let it get out of hand like it did last week in Green Bay when they had a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter and they threw 46 passes. That was ridiculous. That's not their winning formula. But complementary football, and I thought they were exceptional at that today. I mean, they scored on their first 7 possessions. That's the first time they've done that in recorded history. And history goes back to 1978. They've never done that before. And so that means that every time Kirk Cousins gets the ball, he's faces a bigger deficit than he did the last time he had the ball, which means Dan Quinn's pass rush is going to be all the more difficult, a bigger challenge to handle every time he starts the possession. And anytime the Cowboys are able to bring the pass rush into the game, it's going to be difficult for an opponent to come back. And the Vikings, they came into this game with Kirk Cousins had 5 comeback wins this year, the most in the NFL. They're a team that has come from behind. They won 7 straight one-score games. So they were used to playing tight games and coming from behind. And, the Cowboys, I think you're talking about that drive at the end of the first half.
I am.
With very little time, and Brett Maher makes a 60-yard field goal twice, which was ridiculous. He was forced to do that. But he proved incredibly capable of that challenging feat. And then they come out the second half and hit, it's a long touchdown play to Tony Pollard, the second of its kind in the game. And again, they just, refused to even consider the possibility of losing. They learned a lot from what happened to them in Green Bay. We heard Micah Parsons and guys like him stand out there and say, give me that lead again. We failed. Dak gave us a big lead. Don't blame Dak. It was on the defense. Give me that lead again. We'll never blow it again. And for at least a week, they've honored that promise.
Yeah, I would say so. The meetings that took place out there, Dan Quinn, everybody had to be questioned after what happened in Green Bay. Ed, you know how many touchdowns they would have needed to make it a one-score game? In this one, 5. I think it would have taken 5 touchdowns to get that thing to a one-score game. So the Vikings, they bowed out early. Ed, there's so many different factors in this one. We'll talk a little bit about the defensive performance, but first, this getting the 2 running backs back in there together. What a luxury it is, because it's like even on the first touchdown drive, you got one guy get you all the way down the field, and they tried to let him have the touchdown, and he got stoned at the goal line. And they're like, well, we better put Zeke in, and he'll smash it in there, and he did. And so while Pollard is your home run back, obviously 189 yards from scrimmage, over 100 yards receiving, 80 yards rushing. It is nice. You talk about complimentary to have both running backs, and then even the third back came in and looked pretty good to me. Malik, I believe.
Malik Davis.
Yeah, Malik Davis.
Undrafted rookie. Yeah. And there's always all this controversy. People are like, well, it's great that Ezekiel Elliott's hurt and he's missing games. Now the Cowboys are forced to, give Tony Pollard the number of touches that he merits. And the Cowboys always counter with, we're a better team when we help out both players. And McCarthy, talked about that after the game, that they don't have to call their play based on who the running back is. Like, whoever's in the game can run anything that they have up in the game plan. And I think Kellen Moore made the point today with the way you use these 2 players. They're entirely compatible. You got 2 long touchdown plays out of Tony Pollard. You got 2 short, tough, physical runs around the goal line from Ezekiel Elliott. This is the first time in franchise history that they've had one running back score multiple touchdowns running Zeke Elliott, and another running back score multiple touchdowns receiving Tony Pollard in the same game. It's never happened before. Not even when they had Herschel Walker and Tony Dorsett did it happen before. Not when they had Julius Jones and Marion Barber did it happen before. And it's the first time since 1980 they've had multiple running backs score multiple touchdowns in the same game. The last time it happened was Tony Dorsett and Robert Newhouse against the Giants in 1980. Pollard is just phenomenal. 3 touchdowns of more than 50 yards this season. That's the most in the NFL for any running back, and only Devontae Adams has more at any other position. So, it's obvious to me that the Cowboys need to capitalize on this opportunity. They failed to do it last year when they had their shot. They're going to get another shot this year. And they're never going to go into a season with Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard on the same team again. They're not going to be able to afford them both under the salary cap after this year, because Pollard's in play as an unrestricted free agent to get a second contract, and there's going to be huge competition for him if they don't franchise tag him. And Ezekiel Elliott's the highest paid running back in football based on his cap charge. So they need to make the most of this situation right now, and they certainly did that today. Probably better than ever before have they demonstrated just how compatible these 2 running backs are.
I keep bringing this up. If I'm Pollard's agent, I have him hold out for this Thanksgiving Day game.
Probably should have had him hold out while Zeke was out for 2 games with an injury. We're going to have him hold out.
That's right. Then Malik may have burst onto the scene. Who knows? But, boy, that wheel route was a thing of beauty. And then, of course, the one where he just exploded down the sideline. Tremendous day for Pollard. And you're right, though. The days of him being sort of a inexpensive luxury type item that's coming to a close, and he's played himself into that. And much like with other players in the NFL, this is why one of the many reasons why, from a sense of urgency standpoint, that Jerry always likes to talk about. I mean, you got a great chance because you just played. Okay, the Eagles almost got beat today. They obviously improved to 9-1. Giants did get beat, so you're now in a tie with the Giants at 7-3, getting ready to play them on Thanksgiving. I mean, the NFC, the way it's set up, Ed. I mean, the Cowboys have to have that mentality of why not us? Like, we've seen nothing because they played the Eagles and lost to them when they didn't have their starting quarterback. We've seen nothing to suggest to this point that anybody is like heads and tails above the Cowboys. I don't believe.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty remarkable, and we've said this, that they went 4-1, with their backup quarterback, Cooper Rush, starting 5 games. And now Dak Prescott has started the same number of games as Cooper Rush. He started 5 games. And they've won 3 of the last 4 games since his thumb surgery. They've averaged 35 points a game since he's come back. They scored over 40 twice. And they've won the 3 games by an average of 15 points a game. So they've been reasonably dominant. And if they can score like that again, then there's no reason this defense can't hold up its end. This is a better defense than they had last year. They're not winning on, creating turnovers that are totally unpredictable. They're a dominant defensive team when they get support from the offense. And they haven't had that every week. But again, it's imperative that McCarthy and Kellen Moore don't get out of control with throwing the football. Their formula is to have close to a 50-50 split, run pass, and play great defense. That's their formula. And they did it the whole time they had Cooper Rush in there. Today was really the first time they did it when they've had Dak Prescott starting. And, this was the first time all season that Prescott has started against an opponent with a winning record. And he's been criticized, for a long time throughout his career for not winning these types of games. Today he goes out there and completes 88% of his passes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of reasons for the Cowboys to be encouraged with what they're doing on offense right now.
That's winning football. And quite honestly, I was looking at his numbers and they were reminiscent of what Aaron Rodgers did to them the previous week. 22 of 25, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. And you're absolutely right. You just can't get into situations where he has to throw it 46 times. And I think they kind of know that, but they still, every once in a while, get lured into that. And part of it's because they have a star quarterback, but to your point, they kind of they learned, and this came up on the broadcast today, they learned how they needed to play with Cooper Rush. And it's not like, let's go back and do something different with Dak. No, we need to play this way with Dak. Now, they can be better with Dak, but that style of football is what they need to do. And speaking of that, Ed, we've heard Jerry say things like this before, but it bears repeating that Jerry, outside the locker room just a little while ago, was asked if this Cowboys team, does he see this as a championship contender, to which Jerry says a resounding yes. Yes. Unequivocally, yes. I sure do think what I see out here right now is a team that you could go get a Super Bowl with. So, Ed, he's said things like this before, but it is amazing how much difference a week makes. But
he didn't say that after Green Bay.
No.
But he did say it after they lost to the 49ers in the first round of the playoffs last year. They were the only division champion not to advance to the next round with a home loss. And he said that this was one of the best chances we've ever had, in my opinion, to win a Super Bowl. So if he feels that way then, and he gives Mike McCarthy another year and says he didn't seriously consider making a change, and so now he's saying it again, he's feeling the same way again. unless there's an injury to justify failure, what kind of pressure does this put on Mike McCarthy and his coaching staff to deliver this team to at least an NFC championship game?
Yeah. Yeah, which would, again, be the end-all, be-all for a team that hasn't done that 26 years. That would be enormous. All right, Ed, it is time, and people get excited because they want to see what the grades, and I have to believe today's grades will be exemplary. I mean, I feel like our man Stretch is going to be excited about this performance and will say only kind things. It is time for former Cowboys scout and coach Glenn Stretch Smith with his Stretch Plays. All right, it is a Stretch Plays with Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboys scout and coach. And you can watch Stretch every Sunday evening on WFAA Channel 8. And Stretch, this was just an absolute annihilation. I mean, I just overall, is this one of those things that you go, okay, Cowboys got right? Is this just something that happens in the NFL every once in a while? Everything goes wrong for a team? Like, I think week to week, we have these wild overreactions to things. Like, what is your just overall take on what you saw out there? And do you feel like this is way more indicative of who the Cowboys are than maybe what we saw against Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw a team that came out with a purpose. You saw a team that was somewhat red-assed over the fact that they let a fourth-quarter game get away from them in Green Bay. You saw a team that went out and put together a complete football game. And, I mean, every phase of the game they were playing. I didn't think, Minnesota had things go against them. I thought, obviously their left tackle was down and they have had some offensive line injuries, but every team has that. I mean, Dallas went out and just said, you know what, we're fixing to whip this team's ass. And that's exactly what you did. And you saw them never come off of the gas. That's the thing that, to me, impressed me was they got the ball right there before the half, went right down and got the field goal. They tried to take that away from him by saying it wasn't a catch after he kicked a 60-yard field goal. And, they said, okay, it is a catch. And, yeah, go ahead and hit that 60-yarder again. And he just drilled it. I mean, it was a team that went out with a purpose. It was a team that went out to say, you know what, we're fixing to show who we are. And I think that's exactly what you saw. I mean, you saw an offensive line that dominated. You saw a defensive line that dominated. You saw a secondary that did a great job of covering two really good receivers in a linebacking core and a safety group that said, you know what, you guys traded for who you think is going to be your next future great tight end, and they just shut him down. They shut down the running game. I mean, everybody was concerned. I mean, I can honestly say I was not that concerned because I felt like once that Wilson and Hooker got back in from a safety standpoint, you were going to get better run fits. You were going to see guys in the correct gaps and where they needed to be, and that's exactly what you saw. You saw a team just go get after somebody, and I felt like there was a purpose in what they were doing, and the purpose was the fact that they were going to shut down any naysayers that thought, well, you went out and blew a 14-point lead in Green Bay. That can happen in the NFL, but I really feel like it was almost a team that said, hey, I tell you what, we're going to do what we're supposed to do. I'm playing for the guy next to me. And, I mean, certainly you'll see that for the next 7 weeks. I mean, that was a complete country ass whipping, and there was nothing that Minnesota could do about it. Absolutely nothing they could do about it. And to me, that shows a football team that's growing. It shows a football team that obviously believes in themselves. They're playing for one another. I mean, I thought they did a great job of – I'm not telling more, did a great job of calling the game. I mean, they got Pollard lined up one-on-one with a linebacker and went straight through the seam in that bullets look and just said, you know what, catch me if you can. And he back threw the ball well. I mean, there was just a lot of things in this football game that you could point to and say, wow, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that. In reality, you know, they called the run, they ran the football, and they were dominant in everything they were doing. I think they scored on 7 straight possessions or something like that. I don't know that that's ever been done. They just said, hey, you know what, we're fixing to take it to this team, and that's exactly what you saw today.
All right, a 43 win. To highlight your point about total domination, total yards 458 for the Cowboys, 183 for the Vikings, and you brought it up a little bit, but you made a point. In fact, you seem like one of the only people who weren't, bowled over by the Cowboys getting gashed so hard in the run game. And part of the thing was, oh my gosh, they've got Dalvin Cook coming up, and you just name it. They have all these great runners. What are they going to do? Teams are going to keep coming after them, but you didn't really worry about it. And I guess what you said a minute ago was kind of interesting to me, that Malik Hooker, having Jaron Kearse, having the full complement of players, the safety. And by the way, they were down a linebacker in this game. We found out before the game Anthony Barr couldn't play, and Damon Clark from LSU, 5th-round pick, who had neck fusion surgery. I know a thing about that. I thought he played really well. But, Stretch, you kind of had a feeling that the run thing wasn't some kind of end-all, be-all problem for this team.
Yeah, I didn't feel that way. I still think you've got a very good defensive football team, and as long as they've got, and again, I don't mind challenging guys, but as long as they keep some gas in their shiver-getter to tackle on the perimeter like they need to do, they'll shut the run down, and that's exactly what you saw them do. I mean, what I liked about what the football team did was that they went out there and as a group, I mean, I think really made a statement. I really do. I think it's the statement of almost of the year in the NFL. I mean, this is a team that just went into Buffalo and beat Buffalo. And they went into Minneapolis, and I'm talking about just whipped their ass. And I mean, it was a physical, complete domination of a football game. And it wasn't like you can say, well, Minnesota got bad breaks. They were getting their ass whipped. That's the only thing you can say. Yeah. And I've been critical of Kellen Moore interviewing for a job, or feel like he was interviewing for a job at times and doing cute things. Hey, they just went out and said, you know what, here's what we're going to do. And that's exactly what you saw them do. Well,
when they're able to run the ball like this, and when Dak's not asked to throw it 46 times or whatever it was against Green Bay, this was an efficient quarterback, 22 for 25. One play in particular that stands out before this thing got completely out of control that set up that 60-yard field goal was that pass to the sideline where CeeDee Lamb just kind of waited there, and they needed a lot of yards, and they got a lot of yards, and then left 5 seconds on the clock because of where they completed it to. I thought that Romo picked up on it immediately and said that's the one McCarthy used against the Cowboys in that 2016 playoff game. What did you think about that throw in particular, and then Dak's overall performance?
Well, I thought it was a well-designed play. Romo kind of pointed out the obvious that the offensive line was kind of turning back and they were going to let him roll to the right. I thought what was interesting is that they had Turpin in the game. As you know, he doesn't get a lot of snaps, and he draws immediate attention. And I mean, he is busting it up the boundary up there, and he took that corner and that safety out of there. And so that's what really left open the opportunity to throw that deep ball down the boundary. So, I thought it was obviously well designed. It's something that they practiced. It's something that they're good at. And a great throw, great catch, keep your feet in, and you go execute. And so that's the whole thing about when you're grading guys and when you're wanting to, specifically talk about players and say, hey, did he miss this assignment? Was that assignment missed? How did they play this particular scheme? I mean, tonight they did everything that you would want to see your football team do. And I I think it's, this is one of those games where I've got a feeling you're going to see it where they're just going to say, hey, man, it's game balls for everybody around. And I think that's exactly what you got. I mean, you got everybody earned a game ball in this situation. I mean, I can't think of one particular snap or any snap where I was just like, yeah, what were they doing there?
Mm-hmm.
Or look at that ball, or look at the placement of that ball, or how about that drop pass? Or I mean, it didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
It really felt like it was one of those games where it was an accountability, statement for what the Cowboys can do.
Well, Micah Parsons set the tone early with a strip sack. Dorrance Armstrong made some great plays in this game. Kirk Cousins never had a chance, and once they kind of were able to pin their ears back, they came after him. A word, Stretch, on Tony Pollard. 189 yards from scrimmage, over 100 yards receiving. I mean, in a sense, this is a cheaper, healthier option to Christian McCaffrey. Of course, the problem becomes he's having such a breakout year. He's about to make a ton of money in free agency, and the Cowboys need to be proactive in trying to keep him. But this is Stretch. It's a nice thing to have like a power back you can use down there on the goal line, and then somebody with uncommon speed. I mean, this is just there's a level that he hits that not too many backs in the NFL have right now, and it just gives the Cowboys another great weapon.
Yeah, and again, he's a matchup nightmare for you. I mean, you saw him catch the swing out there. Schultz did a great job kind of blocking in the perimeter, and he's got enough speed to hit that and take it to the house. Then, they come back, and it's, they're trying to line the linebacker up on him, and they think he's going to run a little option route.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of running the option route, he runs, kind of a bullets look or a goal look, and you saw him run right by him. I mean, you saw a really well-placed football, the nose of the ball coming right down. He reaches out, makes the easy catch, and it's a touchdown. And really, to me, that was the knockout punch in the game. It was kind of the knockout two series in the football game where they said, we're going to kick this field goal before the half, and on top of that, we're going to come out and we're going to get this ball in the third quarter. We're going to go right down and we're going to score, and we're going to get the matchup that we're looking for, and we're going to put this football game away. And to me, that's what you want to see. You don't want to see them, do like they did last week where they went 3 and out and give Rodgers an opportunity, to come back out in the fourth quarter there and beat you. They just said, we're not going to do that. And that to me, that was a statement, and the most impressive thing in the football game was how they did that. We know they played great on defense. We talked about that, but literally, to me, it was the most complete game I've seen a Cowboys team play in a long time, Matt.
All right, and we always at least have a little bit of a special teams moment. You've already mentioned the return man who really had one especially nice return, but the kicker that's pretty amazing when you make a 60, but they buzz down there, and so that gets taken. That doesn't count. And then he knocks the next one. I mean, he even connected it better. They went from not having any kickers in training camp to maybe having the best kicker in the NFL. And it's really, today he was just kicking 50-yarders like they were nothing. I think Maher has become a weapon for this team.
Well, there's no question, and again, it's like you said, man. I mean, they're playing complementary football, and they're playing a complete game, and I mean that's just something to be said for the performance that you saw tonight from this Cowboy team. I mean, literally, it's game balls all the way around, and I've been critical, and I'm not afraid to let it rip whenever it needs to rip, but. That was as complete a football game as I've seen a Cowboys team play in a long time.
All right, sounds like you're handing out A's across the board. There will be times when you're pretty harsh, but this is a game where it was hard to be that way, and I think you do have to give it plenty of praise. Stretch, I did want to let you be a part of one thing. Tonight we begin. We love doing this in the holidays. Most light beer doesn't taste like much of anything, but then there's Miller Lite. Light on calories, not taste. Because what's the point of having beer if you can't taste it. Stretch, I think you know about that, and a lot has changed over the years, but boy, that full-bodied taste is without the uncomfortable, heavy feeling. Stretch, have you ever had an uncomfortable, heavy feeling after Miller Lite? Don't answer that, because I know the answer is no. Yeah.
No, it's a smooth go down, and it's not like you used to do, Mosley, when you drink that heavier stuff and you give it a good belch. It's just a light little burp when it gets down. So that's what makes it worth its while.
Don't think you've seen that in action. That special occasion when you and your best friends, that's you, Stretch, for me, can get together and catch up. And by the way, just a personal experience the other night, Hotel Indigo in Waco, before the Bears and the Frogs got it on. We won't talk about how that game ended. But I think, Stretch, for you, it's your swimming pool, that beautiful pool that you have out there in Parker County, or a fire pit. What is your favorite? When you think about your best times drinking your Miller Lite with friends, give me the location usually. Where does that happen?
No, it's no question. It's a summer afternoon. It's having a Miller Lite there by the pool, but. And at this time of year, when you want to toast up that cheer, Mosley, you got to kind of crack open that fire pit, put the right chips in there, so it gets you get that right smell to it, and nothing like a Miller Lite.
Oh man, nothing I like better than chopping wood and then building a fire, having a few drinks with friends. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/doomsday. That's MillerLite.com/doomsday, right to your door. Or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Stretch, thank you very much. Have a tremendous night on TV. That'll be good. I mean, people like to stay up and kind of watch you, whether it's with Jonah Javad, whether it's with Mike Leslie or even Joe Trahan. They always love watching you on our local ABC affiliate. Thank you, sir. All right, there it was, Stretch Plays. And, again, we appreciate Miller Lite that's jumped on with us, and I'll always enjoy having them. And, Ed, Miller Lite is something you've seen a bottle or two around the house at times, but good to have them. Good to have them involved. Now, Ed, as you kind of gather your thoughts from a long day in Minneapolis, it was interesting too in talking to you earlier that I believe on Friday you got to talk to Coach O'Connell from the Vikings, and you came away from that thinking, hey. These Vikings, I got to feel pretty good about it because he had a ton of confidence. Ed, this thing just got completely away from the Vikings, and I would think that would be pretty demoralizing to be there 8-1, thinking you're looking good and a true contender, and to have a team come in and just beat you down. Now, Ed, I believe the Cowboys, Vegas-wise, were favored by 2.5 in this game.
Yeah,
so. They certainly covered that and more. Ed, the defense, the performance, I mean, coming into it, the big thing was, okay, people are going to run. People are going to keep running on you. And Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn, everybody, they all met and they challenged each other. And I thought the Micah Parsons, who had a great game, again, I don't quite understand, maybe you figured it out this week, why he was not playing on the line of scrimmage against the Packers. They decided to play him off the line for much of that game, all but 10 snaps. Today was just the opposite, and he wrecked the game from the start, and I thought the strip sack early really set the tone.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think last week they had him play 47 snaps as an off-the-ball linebacker because they wanted to try to control the run, and they wanted him to be involved in their run defense and it not to be easy to run away from him. And they didn't have Anthony Barr in the game, who usually plays that other linebacker spot next to Leighton Vander Esch. So they moved Parsons to that spot thinking he could be more involved in controlling the run. And this week as they prepared. I went out there on Thursday, and they believed Anthony Barr was going to come back from this hamstring strain and play in the game. He was out, practicing. As it happened, he tweaked it again on yesterday and wasn't able to play, but they believed in their preparation that he was going to come back so he could resume that spot next to Leighton Vander Esch and help control the run game. Because I saw the day I was out there on Thursday, Parsons was not practicing with the linebackers. He was practicing with the defensive linemen, which meant to me he was going to come off the edge. And sure enough, that's what he did. For the most part, he did take some snaps at linebacker because Anthony Barr missed the game. But I think by then they had already planned, well, we're going to have Barr, and Parsons is now set to be a defensive end. Let's not change that on him. And they didn't. They rushed him a time or two from linebacker. He went up the middle, but he has that phenomenal versatility. And it's just amazing what they were able to do and the control they had over this game. I mean, the Vikings had gone into this game with a 92-game streak of scoring a touchdown. That was the longest streak in the NFL. No touchdown today. Kirk Cousins had gone into the game with 39 consecutive games with a passing touchdown, the longest active streak in the NFL. Both of those things come to an end today. Kirk Cousins took a career high 7 sacks, faced the highest pressure percentage of his career, even though he's only blitzed 17% of the time. So it was pretty remarkable. The pass rush the Cowboys had 7 sacks, their most in the game since 2008 against the Giants. Here's what I think is really interesting. The Cowboys have faced 10 different starting quarterbacks this year. 6 of the 10 have faced their highest pressure rate of the season against Dan Quinn's defense. Kirk Cousins, 63% of his passes were attempted under pressure. Daniel Jones, 49%. Matthew Stafford, 43%. Jalen Hurts, 40%. Tom Brady, 35%. Joe Burrow, 33%. All of those quarterbacks face the highest pressure in their games against the Cowboys. And, you mentioned the Vikings. Yeah, they thought they were something. They were, second. They were tied with the Eagles for the best record in the NFC. And now they've lost 2 games. They've lost to the Eagles and they've lost to the Cowboys. So the Vikings can't be better than the 3rd best team in the NFC based on how they performed against the other competition in the conference to this point.
Yeah, and Ed, I was just looking real quick to see. We made such a big deal this offseason of them losing Randy Gregory, and it happened in kind of a weird manner with it having to do with some kind of contractual clause. And so I think we kind of thought it was embarrassing that the Cowboys let him get away and Denver sign him. We did not make a big deal out of the re-signing of Dorrance Armstrong. Again, in addition to Micah wrecking things, Dorrance Armstrong took over. And again, they lost Darisaw, which is their best offensive lineman, to a concussion. There were maybe some reasons for this, but you have to take advantage when you see an offensive line in peril. And the Cowboys did. Ed, the 7 sacks now for Dorrance Armstrong on the season. I believe these have been up
career
there.
High.
Yeah. And I looked over at Gregory, and I know he was banged up to start the season, but 2 sacks. 2 sacks this season, and quite honestly, has not had a chance, and maybe he will, but has not had a chance. Of course, that's not a great team that he's on. But it is interesting to revisit these things. From week to week, we go, oh my gosh, they missed this guy or they missed that guy. And of course,
like Amari Cooper, right?
Amari Cooper. Yeah.
Amari Cooper has 7 touchdowns catches. That's more than or as many as the entire Cowboys wide receiving core combined, because CeeDee Lamb has 5, and then Noah Brown and Michael Gallup each have 1. But, Dak is now throwing touchdown passes to his running backs. He's always thrown a lot of touchdown passes to his tight ends. But obviously they would be a better offense if they had a player like Amari Cooper, or if they had Amari Cooper, they wouldn't be out there trying to sign Odell Beckham Jr., for a couple months. And Jerry, I think, said today, confirmed the reporting this morning on a pregame shows that Odell Beckham Jr. is going to meet with the Giants and the Cowboys sometime after Thanksgiving. So huge opportunity for the Cowboys in that competition. If they were to win on Thanksgiving Day, they'll have beaten the Giants twice. The Giants would then be 2 games behind them, effectively.
Yeah.
They'd be a game ahead in the standings and have the tiebreaker advantage. So he would theoretically have to see Dallas as being a better, offering him a better potential to fulfill his ambition to get back to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I mean, it's an important game on Thursday, and the Cowboys know this routine very well. They ought to be able to put a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones again. He had his first two interceptions in his last 6 games came today against the Lions of all teams, and they wound up losing that game. So the Cowboys are in an important game against the Giants on Thursday on Thanksgiving Day for a lot of different reasons: the division race and potentially the competition for Odell Beckham Jr.
Our broadcast studio, Ed, has already been reserved at AT&T Stadium, and so we'll be. I know you'll at some point would like to maybe see your family and have some Thanksgiving because you'll be out there early. But we'll get you out of there. We'll be very efficient, okay? But everything's good, and I'll be out there with you. And
beautiful,
Ed, I've made sure every Cowboys home game the rest of the year, the Cowboys have insisted that I be there, okay, in the press box, and so very pleased about that. The Doomsday Podcast, they love it, and so they want us out there. So we'll be excited about that as the Cowboys prepare for this showdown. All right, Ed, you talked about it. Cowboys uniquely prepared because they do this every year. They got to turn around quickly. I thought it was a little strange that they put Micah Parsons back in that game after he appeared to be hampered or injured, and then they got him back in there. And I don't know if that was just to kind of work it out, make sure he was okay, but generally you could do that on the sideline. They were up by 37 points. That was a bit strange.
I agree, and I asked my post-game interview was with Micah Parsons, who I thought was great this week in that he said something like beyond the, hey, give me a lead like that again, and I guarantee you that S isn't going to happen again. He also said, I'm going to buckle my chin strap, I'm going to set the edge, and I'm going to ball out. And if they want to throw it, I'll come see them then too, talking about the Vikings. So he really kind of put it on himself to have a big game. Dak Prescott said afterward that he and Micah and some other players were talking and last night at the team hotel, and that they talked about chasing greatness. And Dak talked about the fact that, hey, Micah is definitely one of the guys who can be a special player in the history of the game with what he does in his career. And he just knew, based on the way Micah was talking last night to this group of players, that he was going to come out and have a great game. And he's had two sacks now in 5 different games this year. He's got 8 career multi-sack games in a season and a half. The only player to have more through his first 2 entire seasons is Aldon Smith at 9. Micah Parsons is 1 away from tying Aldon Smith for that, and has 6 or 7 games to try to break that record. Pretty impressive. I mean, the only other guys with 8 are Sean Merriman and Reggie White. So he's keeping some pretty elite company as it is. But I thought Micah Parsons, with what he said this week, for as young a player as he is, to really put it on himself in the way that he did, I thought that was really special. And he walked the walk. I mean, like you said, first time Kirk Cousins goes back to pass on 3rd down, gets strip sacked by Micah Parsons, the Cowboys score, and that's it. They're adding to the lead the rest of the day.
Yeah. And that was when they had their best player, their best offensive lineman in the game. I mean, it's not like he beat the backup lineman. That was Darisaw in there, and then Darisaw had to leave the game. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone. We'll be with you on Thanksgiving, of course, as the Cowboys and Giants get it on. And Ed and I will be there to react to all of it. And we appreciate Frito Nation Productions, Mark Frito Friedman. Great to have Lance in here with us tonight in the studio audience. I did want to say one thing. Lakeside Roofing, family-owned, full-service roofing company serving the Dallas-Fort Worth area, serving the Metroplex with the highest quality roofing products paired with the highest quality workmanship. That's Lakeside Roofing Company. The website, lakesideroofco.com. That's lakesideroofco.com. And, boy, they're involved in the whole Marable homes business, Ed. And so they work in tandem. It's like, oh, you need a new home? You need a new roof? They do it all. And it's a one-stop shop for these gorgeous custom homes. All right, Ed, go get some dinner. Minneapolis, an underrated city. And since you said it was kind of balmy, 20 degrees right now, get out there, walk around the city, check things out. Appreciate it, Ed. Good work from you. And we look forward to visiting with our legion of followers on Thanksgiving.
Sounds good, man. Thanks, all.
You bet. There he goes, Ed Werder, and that is the Doomsday Podcast from far north Dallas. I'm Matt Mosley. Good night, everybody.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.